This is Conan Exiles, an open road multiplayer survival game with crafting hold up, don't leave just yet. I understand there's many other trash open road survival games with crafting aspects out here on the Steam market, but Conan, yes, there's something good here. Let me explain, please. Just come back, sit down, everything's gonna be fine, okay? Let's start again. So, Conan Exiles is a multiplayer open road survival game with crafting elements that's actually good. So the start of the game is pretty straightforward. Your character's just hanging around in the middle of the desert, and from here you get your character creation screen where you pick your race, which isn't all that important, and your religion, which is a little bit important. We'll get to that later. You got your standard character customization. You can customize them pretty in depth. It's a good character creation screen, and off you go. Conan comes along, he frees you, and now you're welcome to explore the Exiled Lands. The Exiled Lands are pretty straightforward. If you try to leave the Exiled Lands, you die. Simple as that. So it's like New York. From Escape from New York, that is. You continue travelling down the road, you see a rather scary bat boy, and he ends up buggering off after seeing your ugly mug. And eventually, after travelling a little bit further, you get somewhere hospitable. Here's where you start doing the standard early game survival game stuff. You collect rocks, cut down trees, craft basic weapons, all the standard nonsense. The nice thing, however, is that food and water isn't really that hard to acquire in Conan. Water has a lot of body of water all over the place, so you can easily get something to drink. And in terms of food, all sorts of animals and people drop a healthy amount of meat, so you're not going to go hungry. In the top right of the screen, you should be seeing the journey steps. They're pretty much basic challenges for you to complete. They give you a lot of XP. They're pretty much the best way to level up during the early game, and they do a lovely job of guiding you through the early, heck, even into late game, and what you should be trying to achieve. Mostly everything and everyone is trying to kill your however, such as crocodile, midget imps, as well as hungry cannibals. This world is pretty savage, and no one really wants you in it. Speaking of savages, there's the attribute point system. When you level up in Conan, you get attribute points and you can spend them on skills. There's nothing all that special. It's all pretty standard stuff, such as strength, agility, stamina, just with different names. But the interesting thing is every 10 levels into one tree, you unlock a perk. Some perks are pretty bland and boring, but you do end up unlocking some cool ones, such as being able to double jump, eating raw flesh without getting food poisoning, or ricocheting arrows. There's a lot of cool character builds you can do with this system, allowing you to specialize your character into a certain combat style. And you may not be surprised here that combat is what you're going to be spending the majority of your time doing. This is a Conan game after all. The melee combat in this game is what really sets it apart from other multiplayer open road survival crafting games, as it doesn't feel like a bunch of teenagers running around a riffle bat trying to hit each other. Combat is your standard third-person lock-on affair. You got light and heavy attacks, you can combo them together, you can dodge, you can kick, you can block. There's all sorts of verbs for you to use. There's also a lot of weapons, such as sword, maces, daggers, spears, bows. There's pretty much a weapon out here which has a moveset you'll fit your playstyle rather lovely. Enemies telegraph their moves as well, so if you're, good at combat, for example, you can time your dodges and not get hit, which is, pretty satisfying and pretty good for not dying, as you will probably die a lot in Conan Exiles. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel a little bit janky and laggy at times. Sometimes enemies teleport around a little bit, or their animations cancel out in the middle of an attack, but for the most part, it doesn't really get in your way too much. The main thing, however, of the combat is that it feels really ratey and satisfying. The animations, the sound, just everything comes together when you swing that bloody sword and hit something. It's really, really great satisfying. And it also is really satisfying when you cut someone apart. It can also get pretty tough. Fighting 1v1 against most enemies is honestly pretty reasonable. You can telegraph their attacks and dodge them pretty effectively, even against more higher leveled enemies. But when you start to get ganged up by multiple dudes, is when you start to have a bit of a bad time. Even at higher levels with top tier armor, you can still really run into the issue of getting ganged up and killed on. Fortunately, you can escape rather easily in Conan Exiles, as you can climb. You can climb pretty much anything. You see something, you can climb up it. This game follows Breath of the Wild in terms of its climbing mechanics, where if you climb something, use a little bit of stamina. So, if you do see something, yes, you can climb it, you can go here. So after you got some basic gear and feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe set up a nice little base, it's time for you to start exploring the Exiled Lands, and oh boy, there is quite a lot to explore. The map is pretty big, but it's not too overwhelming. It's shaped like an L. You got all sorts of biomes. In your starter area, you got desert, to a little bit of the north, you got a temperate forest, even north of that you got a snowscape and eventually a volcano. And off to the right side of the map, you got a giant jungle area. They pretty much checked off all the standard checkboxes when it comes to fantasy settings. And I have to say, this game looks really bloody excellent. The graphics is absolutely superb. The art team has done a fantastic job of really utilising the Unreal 4 engine to its limit. And it's not just the graphical fidelity of the game, which is pretty damn good, but it's also the art design, such as the architecture and buildings. It really makes you feel like you're exploring some sort of alien world. Yeah, it's sort of similar to Earth in a sense, in terms of architecture and whatnot, but just a little bit weird. Just a little bit. One of my personal favourite areas in the entire game has to be the Black Galleon, even though it's not really a galleon or particularly black in colour. It's owned by the Black Hand Pirates, who set up a pirate encampment in the middle of the desert by a giant ravine. It may not be a pirate ship technically, but it definitely feels like one when you're navigating its, well, I'd say deck, but it's really more of a giant rock. One of the cool details, though, is that the entire encampment, all the tents, they're really just giant shipmasts, which they probably salvaged from the shipwrecks along the eastern coast. Now, you don't want to spend too long admiring the graphics. Like I said before, mostly everything is trying to kill you. I hope you're not afraid of spiders. In terms of enemy variety, there's quite a lot you're going to be encountering your time in the Exiled Lands. For human opponents, there's Dafari cannibals, Black Hand pirates, and Vikings. Monsters, on the other hand, can be pretty terrifying. There's all sorts of standard wildlife that you're going to be encountering, such as elephants, deer, and giant scorpions, you know, the things you usually see on Earth. And then you got your demonic monsters. The monster design overall follows more of a grittier, low fantasy setting, which makes sense considering the source material this game is pulling from. For example, this is a dragon. It may not look like your typical European dragon, because we know there's a lot of dragons in Europe, but it will still bite your head off and burn you alive. There's also quite a few boss monsters to kill, and also dungeons to explore to find them in, and of course they drop some pretty damn good loot. Killing things is cool and all, but what about if you can capture things? Play it like Pokemon, because you can do that too, baby. Because in Conan Exiles, you can start your very own trans-exiled land slave trade, with just a few simple steps. The first one is you get a truncheon. Then you have to find someone who seems pretty useful to your cause. You then beat shit out of them till they finally go to sleep. You drag your ass back to your medieval merry-go-round. I guess you rate around a bit. And then after that, you got your very own, very indentured servant. You can use these thralls in either to aid you in slaying, you can also change their equipment, or to defend your base. There's also certain thralls, such as crafters and armorers, which you can use to improve your crafting stations and unlock new core recipes. People aren't the only things you can capture ever, as you can tame most wildlife in-game by finding their babies and throwing them in your animal enclosures and waiting for them to love you. You can also summon the undead if that's your thing, I guess. Religion also plays a rather key part during your time in the Exiled Lands, as you can build your very own religious altars to praise your most favourite of the dark gods. Hopefully during character creation, you pick the correct god, that being Yogg. Yogg only requires you to use as the most holy of cleavers, so you can meet and greet your foes, and cut them up into unblemished human meat, which you then bring back to the Yogg pit to toss into the almighty fires so you can get tasty, purified flesh. By bringing him enough meat, you earn tokens of zeal, or as I like to call them, God Good Boy points. By leveling up your religious altar and earning enough GGBP, you can eventually do yes. It looks pretty cool, but honestly it's only really useful on sieging a player-made base. But Lovecraft would be proud, however. The base building is pretty in-depth. There's a lot of different building parts and components for you to mix with, and as you can see, some players have built some fantastic pieces of architecture. You can just spend a lot of time just playing interior decorator as well. But for me, however, this is what I build. It may not be much, but it's home. The building even involves a bit of physics, as you can't just build an unraidable one-pillar sky base, as well. This can happen. Gravity's a bitch, eh? And you are going to want to make a good, sensible, defensible base, as every once in a while the Purge will attack your home. The Purge is essentially just a bunch of hostile NPCs, human or otherwise, that will siege your base. It's honestly a pretty cool experience having this massive brawl outside your castle walls. It really does feel like you're participating in a proper siege, especially if you have the right amount of thralls and animals to help you deal with the would-be invaders. You get a bunch of resources from it, and also if you play it smart, you can recruit the would-be attackers to be under your benevolent leadership. Or it will take convincing, with a big club preferably. So slaying and building and slaving may be cool and all, but you may be asking some of the more nuanced questions, such as, why am I here? What am I doing in the Exiled Lands? Well, fortunately for you, there is actually a story and lore behind this game. If you don't really care about any of that, you can really ignore it. It's pretty easy to. Obviously, it's not a set-piece narrative. It's mostly told through logbooks that you find, audio stones.
And at midnight, a moonbeam messenger carries the whispered dreaming.
The magic amulet does stuff so you can hear voices of the past, don't ask. You can also see ghostly images of the past. Once again, magic amulet, don't really ask. Or you can talk to friendly NPCs.
I am simply lonely as I await my return to the misty lands. I would like to talk.
Oh, don't worry about this guy. He's not a furry. If you're a big fan of the Robert E. Howard books, you'll definitely enjoy what is on offer here. It's nothing too crazy narrative-wise, there's nothing that's going to earn a Game of the Year award, of course. But it's pretty cool to figure and piece together what happened to this land and why it is the way it is. But honestly, the real crazy thing, however, is unlike most other open-world survival multiplayer crafting games, is that you can beat Conan Exiles. There is a definitive end if you so desire to pursue it, that is. If you follow the goals on a massive fetch quest to gather multiple artifacts of power, and once you gather all these artifacts of power, so it pretty much just involves you going into dungeons and killing the boss inside, you can gather them all up and, well, finish the game and escape the Exiled Lands. I can't really stress how nuts it is for a multiplayer open-world survival game with crafting mechanics, especially if you're playing on a server, for you to be able to beat the game, your character gets deleted, and that's it. I mean, you can create a new character, and you have to start all over from the game, but having a story like that in this sort of game is kind of weird. Of course, Subnautica has an end to it, of course, and that's another survival game, but that's not multiplayer. It's just weird. It's cool, but it's weird. You can also play this game entirely solo and still have a really good time. As I've mentioned, there's quite a lot of PvE content for you to explore. Or you can also play with a few buddies in your own co-op server. And a nice thing too is that you don't even need to own a dedicated server to play with your friends. You can just play through direct connection. If you're doing it in this method, you are tethered to one another by a set distance, as the game can't handle you being on opposite ends of the match. And yeah, you can just have as much fun on a solo server as you can on a multiplayer server, minus the PvP of course. I mean, I have this many hours in Conan and really all of it has just been on single player. The lovely thing about playing on your own server is that you can fully customize the settings. There's a lot of sliders for you to mess with, so you can tailor the experience to, well, what you want to experience, that is. Yo, to be fair to the multiplayer, I've heard it is pretty good, especially if you do find the right type of server. There are 3 major game modes: PvE, where no one can hurt anyone, PvP, where everyone can kill everybody, and what I think is most interesting is PvE conflict, as your base cannot be raided at all, so you don't have to worry about Chinese hackers blowing your hard work up at 3 AM in the morning, but you can still get killed outside your base and lose all your loot. So it's a nice mix of PvE and PvP. Oh, and because this is an Unreal Engine 4 game, it has a lot of mods, and you can easily download them off the Steam Workshop, and there's a lot to pick from all sorts of balance changes in your armor, weapons, heck even locations. It's pretty cool. I've left a link down in the description below of a collection of simple mods I think are good for a new solo/co-op experience. Yeah, it doesn't change the game too drastically. And that is Conan Exiles. It's an open world multiplayer survival game with crafting elements. Yeah, it is actually good. It honestly does nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary, but because it actually managed to leave early access and not be a broken janky mess of a game, I definitely say it's worth checking out, especially if it is on sale. You may notice on the Steam store, yeah, there is DLC for this game, but for the most part, they are cosmetic, so you can really live without them. Unless you want to look like a Japanese samurai. Frankly, I have no idea how to end this video off, so here's me jumping off the highest point in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.